So I guess it's been like a hot minute since I've made a video, huh? Hang on, this whole lockdown thing is really cramping my style. Just 1 minute. That's a lot better. Wow, man, yeah. All right, so first things first, before we jump into this, I want to talk to Reddit for just a second, who I'm probably posting this video to lots of different subreddits, because I run into a Matt Colville problem of I have, I think, some useful and interesting DM advice, but I come up with those lessons as a result of experience in play. So I don't know really how to share those lessons succinctly without telling you the context in which they came up. So yes, I get this is a long video and it's going to be catching people up on everything that's happened in my game in the last several sessions, but I will try to put timestamps in at lots of different places and use descriptions down below so you can sort of skip around if you want to. I'll try to put a TLDW at the end of the video for if you want to just get the quick hits, the highlights, but I do think that there's a lot of useful context and information and cool story actually in these videos. So if you want to stick around and watch them and just sort of put it on your other screen or your headphones while you're doing dishes or something like that, feel free. But I think that I know this is a long video, but I think there's a lot of really dense, meaty, interesting lessons in here. So try and give it a shot. Stick around. I don't know. We'll see. All right, goodness, it's been a minute since I have made a video, everybody. Sorry about that. The old COVID lockdown life has been eating me alive here, and so I just haven't really had much time or motivation to make a video, and so lots of cool things have been happening in my game, and I was like, you know what, I really gotta capture some of this and turn some of this into some lessons, because I think there's some really useful, interesting things happening here in my game, and I want to share them with you folks. But first, it's been a while, so let's set the stage, let's get some context, let's figure out where we left things. When last we left our heroes, just so long ago. So from the top, for anybody who's trying to catch up a little bit and hasn't remembered because you don't take notes or follow my game very closely, all of this story is detailed in previous campaign diaries. If you want to go back and watch them, see the story play by play, that's fine. If you don't, sort of big picture, the start of the campaign, the players are working for Emperor Ares from Okran, and they're trying to take over the continent of Antar. And if there's going to be a ton of proper names, I'm sorry. I can't do much about that. I will post a link to my map, which I may or may not have done before on this channel, but either way, down below there's going to be a link to my map. A great friend of mine, PD, drew it. Took him like a year, but it's a beautiful map. I absolutely love it. I will use it forever because it's so cool. But yeah, that's my map. If we're going to reference places or anything and you want to just see things spatially, there it is. So yeah, the players are working for Emperor Ares, who's trying to take over the continent of Antar, and the players have changed form. People have died, people left the party, whatever. But the party in its current form is, let's go down the line. The character Azarin, played by my friend Evelyn, who is a half-elven light cleric. And then there is Wilhelm, played by my friend Hunter, who is a great old one warlock. And then we have Makis Caradoc, played by Charlie, and it's a storm something barbarian, storm herald, storm path of the, I don't know, it's a storm barbarian, you know. And then we have Sorel, the warlock, at first, played by my friend Walter, and he was a warlock and is no longer a warlock, and instead he's now a paladin. And because when the players were first going through and they were doing stuff for Ares, one of the things that they were doing was on the side was helping Sorel sort of light these beacons, supposedly, these magical beacons. And what he accidentally did was kind of start to release his patron. His patron was imprisoned because his patron was an undead titan, and the titans, similar to Greek mythology, the titans were around before the gods had to band together to kill the titans, and the gods banished themselves from the plane of existence. A whole bunch of backstory lore nonsense that doesn't super matter, except to say that the players have now sort of dedicated most of the campaign to preventing the return of the undead titan Karshimis, because if he returns, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They'll be pretty seriously forked, and they won't have the gods to be able to rely on, because the gods are all on other planes and they sort of banished each other. It's a whole thing, but we're going to delve more into that later because it's gonna come up. So in the process of trying to stop the cult of Karshimis from being able to return Karshimis back to the material plane, they tracked down sort of one of the cult leaders, Nasira, and tried to ambush her, and it turns out they walked right into an ambush because my players don't really scout or research or go off the beaten path at all. They just sort of say, oh, Nick put this content in front of us. Let's run after this content. I go, okay, well, this content's a trap. So they ran right into a trap. That was pretty terrible for them, hilarious for me. But anyways, so Nasira has them in trap, and basically Nasira is trying to convert them. Nasira is trying to, through sheer weight of her argument, because she's trapped them in like an anti-divine, anti-magic cage. It's not super important, the details of a god blind, and is trying to convert them to the side of Karshimis. And I kind of like hoped upon a hope that maybe the players would, because that'd be super interesting, but I figured they definitely aren't gonna join Karshimis, because one thing I've learned about players is even if you reveal their bad guy to be actually the good guy, the players will still fight against them, because if somebody was personally mean to the players will hate that person forever. They would never join Karshimis' side, and I was proved correct, because the players did all, choose not to join Karshimis. And I was trying to figure out, how do they get out of this? Like, I know it's not my problem. They have to figure out, they got themselves into this mess, they got to figure out how to get themselves out. But how could they even get out? And one of the things that they did while they were imprisoned was someone took a sending stone and sort of stuck it through the bars of their cage and sent a message out. This is before Nasira had confiscated all their items and armor and weapons and things, which the players willingly gave up for some reason. But anyways, they got a sending stone message out and said, hey, here's the situation, here's what's going on, could you rescue us? And I was like, okay, that can set in motion one of my plans. And so one of my plans was going to be, if the players don't have a great way to get out, I'm going to send this group called the Raptors. Now, the Raptors are another group working for Ares that the players have actually interacted with several times before, and they didn't like the Raptors at first, and then they got to help the Raptors out of a jam, and it was this whole thing. So now the Raptors kind of owe them one, but they still have a grudge. It's a whole back and forth, but it was going to be a really cool moment when the Raptors showed up to rescue the players and kick butt. And one of the things I was thinking of doing was making like high-level character sheets. At the time, my players were like 9th level, and I was going to make like 14th level character sheets and then put them on the table and say, all right, for this session, you're not playing your characters, you're playing these characters. Who do you want to play? And letting them look over and be like, oh, I want to be the wizard. Oh, a rogue would be cool to play for a session. That'd be neat. And then them go and rescue themselves from this trap, which I think would have been kind of cool, as opposed to just like the Raptors kick the door in and it just happens that they would get to be the ones to save the day. That'd be kind of neat. But that wasn't necessary, because the players came up with their own idea for how to escape. They said, okay, you know what, we're going to, as soon as we're going to pretend to surrender, and then as soon as Nasira comes to open the cage, we are going to burst out and like cast darkness so she can't close the cage again, trapping people inside. We're going to try to fight the Death Knights. We're going to go grab our stuff, because our stuff is still in this room. She didn't take it out of our sight. I think that's a big important thing. Players need to always know where their gear is, otherwise they will freak out. And so, like, our stuff is still here. Let's go grab the hammer that Azarin has, and we can use the hammer to cast Word of Recall, because that's something that the hammer can do. And I was like, that's a brilliant plan. If everything goes well, that will work. It is possible that not all the players will be able to get Word of Recall. Somebody may have to be left behind. If things go poorly, somebody might die. You don't have your weapons, you don't have your armor, you're all very low AC. This could be bad, but if it goes well, it could work. And as it turns out, that plan went incredibly well. They rolled very, very well. Their plan was great. It's one of those, like, a great plan with great die rolls should have fantastic outcomes, whereas like a great plan with poor die rolls has a pretty good outcome, and then there's like a bad plan with good die rolls, or a bad plan with bad die rolls, and varying degrees of terrible. But anyways, it went very well. They all managed to get out pretty much unscathed. Nobody went unconscious. They actually made all their saves when they needed to. It was really tense, but they managed to get out. And so they sort of report back, hey, we're fine. And that's when they hear like, oh, good, I'll tell the Raptors not to go in, because they had spent a few days gathering information, but now they're getting ready to go in and save you. And they're like, oh, hey, cool, the Raptors were gonna go save us. That's a neat little thing. So I got to throw that in without actually doing it. That was cool. The players saved themselves, but they also got some good favor with the Raptors. That was cool. And then they said, okay, we need to go back to Zelix. Zelix has a mission for us now. We need to go report in, tell everyone what's happening. Let's go back to Zelix, our handler, the guy who sort of is our interface with Ares, and we will talk to him, and then he will give us a mission, and we'll go do something that'll be good for us. Because the players were starting to spin their wheels a little bit on what to do about Karshimis, and they were like just doing the next thing in front of them because it was the only lead they had, and I realized that was sort of bad job on my part, and I only gave them 1 or 2 leads at a time sort of thing. And so I was like, you know what, let's just give them an Ares mission, and then they'll go and they'll do that. They'll have time to just fight some stuff and do a mission. That'll be easy and simple and straightforward, and then we can sort of keep going from there. I want to always keep the pace of the game going. I don't like really slow, drawn out games. I think that, you got to keep things moving, keep things interesting. So that is what I wanted to do. So they come to Zelix, and this is where, for those of you who are like following really closely, my friend Jason was playing a character named Daniel, but he was only there for like a few sessions, and then Jason, real life, needed to step out of the game. And so we sort of wrote Daniel out here, so to speak. But so that was happening. But Daniel is not really playing with us anymore, the character. So this is where that happened. But anyways, we're moving on. They go back to Zelix, and Zelix says, "Hey, cool. I'm glad you're okay. We've got a mission for you. We need you to escort someone to go somewhere and bring back something. And we can't tell you lots of details. You'll learn as you go. We're trying to keep this really close to the vest, really secret, really cloak and dagger, that kind of thing." And you're like, yeah, we get that. Just, code word clearance, all of that. Sure, we'll play along, and we will hang out and be bodyguards for this person. That'll be neat. And Zelix lets them know that, hey, by the way, you're going to be going to another plane of existence. So that's going to be happening. And they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, so that's why they need us, is where there's these powerful people. Awesome, great. So Zelix goes and gets the person that they are going to be escorting and introduces Sybil, the Nagpa. And Nagpas look super creepy, and that's what I was going for, is I wanted something that like looked kind of evil and like acted kind of evil, but was still on their side. I thought that'd be kind of interesting to see, like, ooh, do we trust this person? That we know nothing about them, and so we know nothing about the mission either. And as they're traveling, they're going along their journey with Sybil. I do everything I can to be endearing as Sybil. She's this kind old grandmother kind of character, and that was really fun to play. And they're taking Sybil to the Feywild. They're traveling across to the Vale, a faraway place in my campaign setting, and going to the Vale. And the Vale is where it is the easiest to step back and forth between the Feywild. And so that's where they need to go, because they're going to go and recover the Codex Terranosis. This is something that the players don't know yet, but that is what they are going to go do. They're going to go to the Feywild and bring back the Codex Terranosis to help Ares in his conquest of Antar. So anyway, there's a whole journey going across the land. I don't need to go into all that. They get into the Feywild. There's a few sessions in the Feywild, and it's super cool. It's really interesting. But I'm not going to, let me know if you want me to make a detailed video on what my Feywild was like and the rules and stuff that I used. But really, it would just be rehashing Dale Kingsmill's Feywild video, which I recommend you go watch. I'll try to put a link down below. It's super interesting. I just sort of synthesized that into some interesting rules about time and getting lost and descriptions and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's interesting to have other planes of existence be truly and deeply alien, that they're not just like some other place that you could walk to here on the material plane, that it's somewhere very, very different. The rules and laws of nature and physics don't apply the same way here, and I think that's very interesting. And so that was sort of, they spent some time in the Feywild, and then I was left with a major decision. So if you clicked on the timestamp here, I think there'll be a timestamp too right here. We're going to go through a long, rambly thought process on everything that I decided to do to basically nuke my campaign and create a traitor right on the spot. So I knew that the Feywild, there could be time dilation, warping, or whatever with the Feywild, and so I wanted to sort of play that up a little bit. When the players jumped into the Feywild, I just had someone roll a d20. I didn't tell them why. They got a natural 20, and they were so excited about it. I was like, cool, awesome, you don't notice anything happening, great, you got a 20, fantastic. But I'd been trying to leave little hints about how the Feywild doesn't obey the same rules of time as we do. And so they met some guards at the Vale who were like, we hope we'll see you again, but we probably won't. And the guards might have like been implying, the players definitely inferred that it was dangerous and so the players might die. But no, the guards meant we might not see you again because you might not come back for years. And so the players didn't know that. And then also there's weird stuff about like the sunset and sunrise. It's perpetually dusk or twilight or dawn. Dusk and dawn, and the sun, they never notice the sun's passage. They just sort of look up and be like, oh, I guess it's not sunrise anymore, it's sunset now, and we didn't notice. They went to a festival that the Fae were having, and I was like, man, the time felt weird and strange and hazy, and it could have been like only a couple hours, it could have been weeks long, you don't really know. And so I was just sort of really playing up that you can't trust your own senses when it comes to the passage of time here in the Feywild. So I decided that I had 3 options with what to do with time warping as a result of the Feywild, and I'm going to lay out my thought process and what I chose here. 1, I do nothing, and when they come back, it's been minutes or seconds or normal time or whatever. It hasn't been any passage of time all that significant when they get back from the Feywild. It's just sort of nothing. They go back, they continue with the campaign as they had planned, and that's it. Just sort of a boring option, but is definitely, I guess, a viable one. That's sort of the safest option. The next option up is that instead of days, it's been months. And they come back and Ares has mostly taken over Antar and Karshimis is mostly returned and the stakes have been amped way up and the timeline has been accelerated. But I didn't end up going with this option because the players, I think, would have felt pressured into a battle with the champion of Karshimis, played by Mavros, a former alternate character of a player. It's a whole thing. But anyways, this Draco Lich, they would have been forced into a confrontation with Mavros and his whole party, a Lich and a Vampire Lord and a Mummy Lord and a Death Knight and a whole thing. So they would have been forced into that final confrontation way sooner than when they would have been able to win. They would have lost that final battle. And I felt like that wasn't going to be fun. They were going to feel ultra pressured. And how did they know that the Feywild time was going to pass? And like, oh great, now we have to scramble. And I just didn't think that was going to be a very satisfying situation. So I opted not to go with that. And the final choice is I go whole hog and say, okay, it's days to years. And they come back 5 or 10 years after they went into the Feywild. And what that would mean is Ares may or may not have been successful, but then Karshimis returned and is ruling over the entire material plane of existence. And that would be, I think, really devastating for the players to have that bomb dropped on them, but also it wouldn't accelerate the timeline. They would be able to say, okay, well, things are as bad as they're going to get right now, so we have time to establish ourselves, build ourselves up, gather all the things we need, go and talk to gods if we need to, and try to get rid of Karshimis somehow. So that option, the nuclear option, so to speak, was going to be a high risk, high reward, I felt, because players might feel really gypped that, like, wait, all this time passed, how could we have known that everything was going to go this badly? But also, we avoided this boss battle, but we didn't get to fight this cool boss battle. Though, I mean, I guess they would have it later down the line, but they might not know that. And so it was going to be, a really risky endeavor to try and, do this to the players. And so I talked it out and I had a few of my DM friends giving their advice, and one of the things that they said was, if you're going to do that, you're basically starting a new campaign. So make sure it feels like this campaign ends. Make sure they feel like they get a big boss battle, there's big reveals, and they feel like this campaign has ended. You tie a bow on it, things like that. And I was like, that's a fantastic point. I definitely need to do that. It's also worth noting at this point that the players had expressed how cool it would be if they lost against Karshimis to play the next campaign in the post-apocalyptic Karshimis has taken over kind of world. So I knew they would be down for that kind of campaign anyway. And I was also thinking, like, they're 11th level now. They really wouldn't be able to start doing anything about Karshimis until they were like 11th level anyway. So what if I just started that next campaign now with the same characters on the sort of the same storyline, but I just fast forwarded. I was getting a little bored with the current arc, and it felt like things were going to kind of naturally resolve themselves and move towards a pretty logical conclusion. They were going to build up all their arms and then battle against Karshimis's cult, and then if they won, hooray. If they didn't, oh no. It was going to be kind of boring, I think. And so I was like, what if we just do the nuclear option, accelerate all the way forward. Karshimis is back. He has won. Oh no, but they have time to get their feet under them. So that's what I opted to do, and we're going to lay out what that looks like in a little bit. But first, the plot twist, the end of this campaign. I need to make sure that it was a real gut punch. And so I knew there was a traitor in the midst in Ares. The players had found notes that indicated that to them as well. They knew that there was somebody in Ares' ranks, high up in Ares' ranks, working for Karshimis. I had an idea of who that person was, but I also, in planning this, realized that they hadn't really interacted with that person much at all. They didn't really know anything about that person. It would be kind of boring to spring that reveal on them now because they didn't know that person. So I just changed who that traitor was. And I made it somebody that they had interacted with and they had talked to and all this stuff they had a relationship with, so that that reveal would feel like something. There would be a gut punch to them. So from here, the players are in the Feywild still, and I knew I didn't want to end a session with the reveal of time has passed, you have lost, Karshimis is the supreme overlord of this plane of existence. Because I feel like that's a huge gut punch, and then say, all right, see you guys next week, is really brutal. And so I wanted to make sure I began the session with that so they would have time to ask all the questions they need to ask and feel like they had some information. And it's still a gut punch, but they would spend an entire session getting their feet under them, so to speak. So I wanted to end with a different kind of a gut punch before. And so they go and recover the Codex Terranosus. And I sort of switched the stats on it, by the way. I just flipped the one thing of, I just made it so that if the codex is on the material plane, then banishment and plane shift and those kinds of spells don't require a saving throw. It's just the inverse of what it is in Strongholds and Followers. I just thought that would be more interesting. It's the defender of this plane, and so it would make it easier to defend the plane while it is on the plane. I also thought it'd be really interesting to have that be the case while they are going through this new campaign that was coming up. So anyways, they recover the Codex, they're with Sybil, they're escorting Sybil back, and Sybil's like, hey, it'd be great if we let Zelix know that we succeeded. I'm going to send him a message real quick, and so she does a sending, lets Zelix know we succeeded, and just a few moments later, the players hear from behind them, and that is a voice that they recognize all too well as Zelix. Zelix has appeared here in the Feywild. Hey, cool! We're so glad to see you, bud. We missed you. What's going on, man? And Zelix is like, hey, great. I'm not going to do his voice. It's a whole performance. But I'm so glad to see all of you. You did a great job recovering the Codex. Unfortunately, you've been snooping around about this spy in Ares' midst, and I can't have you revealing my identity. My true master has decided that you've outlived your usefulness. And this is, through the whole scene of back and forth, the players very quickly realize that Zelix is actually the traitor the whole time, and he is working with and for Karshimis. This was a bomb dropped on the players. The players loved Zelix. He is a very fun, flamboyant NPC, so pretty much all players are automatically going to really enjoy him. But he was fun and weird and quirky, and I just decided that Zelix would be a much more interesting traitor because they knew him, they'd interacted with him. It's okay to decide who a traitor is or who the plot twist is or who the real bad guy is after the fact. You never know less about your campaign than right before you start running the first session. You have lots of ideas and plans and notes and things, but you don't know how it's going to actually play out at the table until you start playing. And so you don't know who the players are going to interact with or latch onto. And so I just decided to change who this traitor was on the fly and just decide that it was going to be Zelix because it was going to be much more interesting and potent of a reveal. And it genuinely was. It rocked their world. It was a bomb dropped on the party. The ensuing battle between Zelix, Sybil, and the party, because Sybil was also working with Zelix, not Ares, was a devastating one. The players were pretty severely injured. One player had Feeble Mind cast on them. One player had 5 levels of exhaustion because they used spell overdraft magic to cast a spell that they didn't have a slot for, as a homebrew rule I have. One player got his brains eaten and then made some kind of a deal with someone or something to come back. And it was a really, really rough battle, but eventually Zelix plane shifted out of there with the book, and so they lost the Codex, they lost Zelix, the players are beaten and bruised, and it was a really brutal battle. But then they word of recall back to their stronghold, and that's where we ended that session. This reveal was absolutely devastating to the players. They started questioning all week long in the group chat, like, wait, all these missions that Zelix sent us on, which ones of those were missions for Ares and which ones of those were missions for Karshimis? Because they're realizing that this mission they were just on to go and recover the Codex Terranosis was for Karshimis. Now, Karshimis has the Codex. That's terrible for the players. And so they were left reeling all week long trying to figure out, when were we used and manipulated? But what that meant was that they were always looking in the past to see what had happened and not in the future to try to ask themselves, wait, why is Zelix now revealing himself? We weren't asking extra questions right now, like, why is he all of a sudden revealing himself? What has happened back on the material plane that would cause him to do that? Oh no, we should get back there and find out. So they definitely didn't think about that at all, which made the reveal the following week all that much more devastating. Because the players are back in Azarin's temple to Adara, and they're casting some spells to heal each other, Greater Restoration, that kind of thing, and they're trying to figure out what has happened and talk for a little bit, and then the doors burst open and they recognize their lieutenants, the people they had sort of left in charge of their stronghold, but they look different. They've got arms and armor now, and someone's has a beard now, and there's a haircut, and they start to be explained to, like, wait a second, how long do you think you were gone? I don't know, like a month maybe? You've been gone 8 years. Ares is dead. Karshimis is back. And this was a bomb. Another one dropped on the players. This was absolutely devastating for them to realize. They spent the entire session asking questions, trying to get their feet under them, talk to their friends. One guy got super dumped by his girlfriend, who definitely thought he was dead. There was a whole thing that was a really fun interaction. But yeah, there's been a whole lot of back and forth here. But the players are trying to figure out what has happened, what's going on. And basically, they're realizing that Karshimis is back, Ares is dead. Anytime anything dies, within a week, it comes back to life as an undead. So there's still normal people walking around, but anytime something dies, if you don't do anything about it, it comes back as an undead, and that's brutally bad. And so the players are starting to realize the situation that they're in. They thought it was a really cool reveal. They didn't feel gypped by anything. My nuclear option worked perfectly. They were excited. They were terrified. After that session in the group chat, one of the players said, guys, the more that I keep thinking about this, the worse it keeps getting. Our situation is really a bad one. And it was cool for the players to start to realize, hey, cool, we're really high level now. We're powerful. We're great. And then come back to a world where, oh no, things are actually really terrible. We're the underdogs again. So they're having to figure out, how do we live and operate in this world? What do we do now? It seems like most of our stronghold has become one of the last sanctuaries, the last refuges for people to come to. There were some wards that they had placed on it so the undead would have a hard time finding it, and they have managed to figure out how to teleport it wherever they need to. So they send scouts out all over, and then if they are about to get found, they contact a scout, and then they teleport the stronghold to that scout. And it has been a way that they've been able to stay safe for these past 7.5 years since Karshimis has come back. And now the players are like, okay, we can't just live like this. We've got gotta do something. To which all their NPCs are like, I don't know what do something is. You survive as long as you can and then you die. That's all there is in this world. And the player's like, no, we're gonna get rid of Karshimis. To which all the NPCs laugh at them, but the players are the heroes, so let's give them a shot, why don't we? But the players are like, okay, what do we do now? What even can we do now? Let's go and find the last piece of Azarin's armor. She's trying to gather all of the pieces of equipment of Adara, her demigoddess, and the last piece is the armor, like the suit of armor. She's got the hammer, an amulet, she's got the helmet, she's got a shield. The last thing is this armor, and she knows that it is beneath the Dwemlock, which is a large inland sea that I have. And they're like, okay, we got to go there and try to recover it, because what else can we do? We need to be at max power before we can go and deal with Karshimis. These are artifacts and things that we need. Let's go there. And so, you know, they are spending time. There have been 2 sessions, I think, since figuring out where they're at. And it's been them figuring out what is it like here in the land of Karshimis, ruling over everything. How do we adapt? How do we live? What do we do? And what are the monsters like now? Been fighting things. And then they were delving deep into a far northern inland sea that's basically like the Black Sea, so it's super, super cold. So that was some exploration stuff. So they're going to deal with some Triton. They're going to try and recover the armor of Adara. And then going forward from there, they're going to, I think, have to go to all the gods and either get boons from or try to convince the gods to come back to the material plane, joining up with the evil gods and fight Karshimis. But I don't think that's going to be very cool to have the gods and Karshimis just have a showdown. Though maybe, I'm thinking about this on the spot right now, maybe they figure out a way to get the gods back to Antar, and then the gods fight Karshimis while the players fight the Dracolich and his group. They do that at the same time. So, because the players fighting, even with blessings, the players fighting Karshimis might be a bridge too far for me. But the players getting to have the gods beat this person, and the players get to beat their real enemies, this like cult of Karshimis, the Dracolich and the Lich and all of that. That would be pretty cool. So maybe that would work. We'll see. I have ideas. If you've got ideas for what to do for that showdown, let me know. I may or may not use them. But yeah, so those are the things going on with the players right now. I have dramatically changed the landscape of my campaign. I think I don't know how many, but every so often a DM should hit the Etch-a-Sketch on their campaign setting and basically wipe things out. So get rid of old player characters and old demons and bad guys and things so that you can have brand new stuff for players to make their mark. And this is me doing that. I'm hitting the Etch-a-Sketch on my campaign setting, getting rid of all kinds of things, and I can remake nations and reform them and all kinds of things after Karshimis has been defeated. And so I think the next campaign, whenever that happens, is going to take place like 50 to 100 years after the events of this game, so that things have evolved and developed in the wake of this. But I'm looking forward to that. But that is way off in the future. For now, I have to figure out what happens now that an undead titan is ruling over the entire material plane of existence. All right. Big time recap for all the people who are jumping straight to too long, didn't watch. That's fine. I get it. It's a long video. Basically, I talked about in this video the ability to, if you know who a traitor is, or you want a traitor to happen, it's okay to not pick one or pick a different one on the spot. Nothing is set in stone until it is revealed to players. And even then you can retcon stuff if you really need to, but nothing is official until you have told it to your players. And so you can change stuff if you need to, make the traitor be the most dramatic, the most devastating reveal that you can. Also, if you don't love your campaign arc anymore and you have a cool idea for a new thing, like, oh man, I really want to have them on a naval expedition, just put your players on a boat. Give them a reason for that. It's okay to hit the erase button on your current campaign and just start a new campaign. And you can do that with brand new characters at low level, or you can just take these characters and put them in a new campaign. Just get started with something else. That's okay too. And so that is what I have done in my game to, I think so far, great success, and it's been a lot of fun. And especially when you're at crossroads, you're trying to figure out, do I do this? Do I do that? try to analyze what's going to be really interesting and dramatic, yes, but what's going to be fun for the players. It's going to be fun for the players to feel like they're forced forward into a boss battle that they're not ready for and they're going to lose, or it'd be more fun for them to, time travel forward and have missed that boss battle and they've lost that boss battle, but now they have time to sort of recover and there's no pressure on them right this moment. That is the option that I chose in my game. All right, long video. Thank you guys for sticking around, or I guess just jumping to the end here. If that is what you opted to do, that's fine, but thank you for watching. I know I haven't made very many videos recently and sort of backlogged everything here in this one. You got the info dump. But thank you for the 12 of you who watched this. I really appreciate that. It's been a really interesting campaign, and I like to always keep things exciting and doing new stuff. And I think that we get scared as DMs of doing big, bold, crazy things like this, and sometimes it's because, it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does, and it makes the sessions even cooler, makes the campaign even better. So don't be afraid to take risks. There's no real way to lose D&D. I guess if you're a jerk playing with jerks, then I guess that's kind of losing. But if you're having fun with your friends, you're trying your best. Sometimes campaigns don't work out. That happens. But if you want to try something, just try something. It's okay. There aren't rules. The D&D police won't come knock on your door because you're in lockdown. So what are they going to do? So thank you guys for watching. If you have any ideas for me, feel free to leave them in the comments. I may steal them and hopefully give you credit later on. Yell at me if I don't. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.